Oh. I'm Nika.
All right.
Nico's also here. Oh, Nico! Hi, I brought work on. But you guys have to be quiet, okay?
You guys can also go in the, if they want to go in the table in there. Or you can stay in here.
You have to be quiet or I'm gonna make Ben come and get you.
All right. There's John appearing as well.
Nice.
Just because the owl will pick up man shirt. Oh.
That one time they were walking around Catamount together and I was like, why do they have a sledgehammer?
Good question.
Like, where did they get that?
I was driving the state.
Yeah.
Yes.
Completing work.
Yeah.
Did you call us to order yet?
Well, we're called to order,
Okay.
but this goes under public comments.
Oh, okay.
Or we can jump ahead to the approval of minutes of October 10th.
Went down and I got to really pull them up.
And I would like to just on the public comment about what I said about Reed, I think instead of saying and sort of can we end it with Danielle thanked him for his time, passion, and commitment instead of volunteering with them.
For his time, passion, and commitment.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then I had a question because it says under 2.1 that you submitted the trail plan on October 15th to the select board and just to fill up how that went.
Yeah, I can talk about that. John and I both went to the select board and I would say it went really well. There was some discussions and questions. Jean was also there. Jean, you might have comments.
No.
But yes, it was approved to move forward.
While you're on number 2, could you correct my spelling of my last name in the first line? You got
Yes,
it right above.
with the E, not the.
Yeah.
Is that like with Olsen? It's like Norwegian versus.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, my husband's Norwegian.
Yeah.
I have something on page 2 of people on the page. On 3.7, Kim asked where Tony, can we say instead of, or at least put in parentheses what that project is, which is, I think that's the UVM project we're talking about, right?
Mhm,
So
yeah.
we just kind of spell that out.
I guess climate
Silvo-
adaptation for or climate silviculture.
Silviculture somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Put UVM.
Adaptive
somewhere too.
silviculture. That's it.
And then I wasn't really sure how to correct this in 3.5, just above it. It's the last sentence or two where it says like. Hans, you said this, so you can help me. Observing birds and volunteers completing work. So no one should complete work. It makes it sound like nobody should complete work. They should leave it half finished.
There's that, he said that there's,
3.5.
Because I think the point was it, like, we were kind of talking about like physical.
performing work.
Performing,
Meant,
doing
like doing
like-
work. It wasn't like incomplete or complete, it
No.
was just doing work.
It was more like doing work that's. I mean, it's work if you're cleaning out bird boxes too, but that's different than driving in stakes or whatever you were
Yeah.
saying, so.
Yeah, it's like making a material change in the forest, like installing something, removing something, digging, like
Right.
that.
Is it manual labor?
Cutting.
How about
Like,
just
is
maybe
that-
performing manual work?
But I
That
think
might
it's-
work or something.
I mean, I do manual work every time I go out there for a run.
Well, you do, what do you do? Pick up
run.
I run, I'm physically moving my
Good point.
body, converting the chemical energy in my muscles to kinetic energy.
All right, this is your.
Sorry, I'm an engineer. I mean, I just say like, volunteering, working on the forest, I don't know.
Well, there's still, the pedestrians are still the volunteers though, right? So there's a distinction between volunteers collecting data and observing birds.
The context
volunteers
here,
doing
the
it.
context here was,
Work.
we have these groups. and they wanna go do their thing. We don't need to keep track of them if they go and do their thing, which is like bird watching and collecting data.
Mhm.
But if they're gonna show up at the forest and like start installing new bird boxes or.
It
or
should change.
Yes, making a material change to the forest itself.
So maybe
Right.
change is the word that we wanna get in there, not
Mhm.
work.
You know, like if you're cutting down invasives, if you're planting trees, if you're sticking millions of plastic colorful flags in the ground. Right?
That's good. Um,
Cool,
it's
thanks.
kind of on the next, we use that not being completed in the next sentence too, but
You said that agrees that it worked.
Is not being performed or something, yeah.
yeah.
Or if it's like passive, right, like it's like birding observations.
Ooh, I don't want to get the birders mad at me thinking that it's passive to look at birds.
Right, right.
I think given that those two sentences go together, I think
Yeah, I
it's
think
more
it's
clear
fine.
for right now. Thank you. Entertaining that.
I mean, on 3.6, not to belabor our discussion from last time, but I think it's important. Like, I think legitimately there's like. These projects, so in 3.6, I was more talking about like an ongoing project. So invite the interest group to speak with the committee. It's like we have. The duck box. Project or program going on. We have the Bluebird box program going on. So not just any interest group, but like an interest group that is currently in charge of a project
Yeah.
at the forest. Like I see us as like, what's going on at the forest? Like if the town people come to us and say, CCF, what's going on at the forest? You know, we'd be like, oh, we have the bird box, the duck box, the bird watch, nest watch, we have the invasive program, we have this, we have that. Like, we wouldn't wanna be missing something on our list. Oh, but what about that other group of people that? And like, for all of those people or whoever's in charge of those programs, that's where I thought like we should have them kind of cycle through the committee once a year. So
Yep.
instead of just general interest group, yeah, probably already updated it.
Yep.
Perfect. You're much more efficient than me talking.
You're still going, but he's already
No.
finished what you said.
You're supposed to say got it.
Trying to
That's what our executives, they teach you quickly. If an executive says got it.
Move on.
got
Yeah, move on.
All right, well, it's 5:40 and we're like, does anybody want to,
I'll make a motion to approve.
great.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nice.
There's no no's. Okay. Moving along. Oh, you know what, Andrew, I added a little action, or like what are, according to the agenda, what we're actually trying to achieve from each bullet, or what each
Okay.
agenda item.
Yeah.
I feel like for the capital budget overview, we are basically just reviewing, right?
And
You're-
providing feedback.
Okay. and
Yes.
Your feedback.
I shared the budget with John as well.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, if there's the discussion to be had, I think there should be. I can get into it if you'd like.
Yeah,
We can just start.
sounds good. I'm just gonna try to like, when we start on a new thing, say what our goal is for that thing.
Very
Love
nice.
Yeah, I like your point. And where is this in the process then? Is it submitted or is this a draft that you will then submit after changes?
So I'll submit it to Eric. After you commented.
Okay.
Yeah. Eric drafts the budget. Which is a good thing to know. He drafts the budgets that then go to the select board. So let's see. So some of you might be familiar with this. If you were on the board last year, it probably looks very similar. The top here describes the projects, the capital projects that have been planned. I haven't added anything to those 3 items, and they're in the same priority that you had them in last year. I'll just do a quick overview. Access to the southern parcel is something we've been talking about. And if there are questions on any of these, let me know, but
Since
then,
acquiring the property. I think, right? Like,
Mhm.
that's like in the original, yeah, okay.
Right. And, there's some concern among the family center that they'll lose access to that side of the property if the McCulloughs, sell their land. So number two, then, replacement of 5 stream crossing structures. Those 5 crossings were part of the license agreement that the town was going to pay for those crossings to be upgraded. And so that's on there, and then the sheep barn preservation
Those 5
was,
crossings are only $15,000.
that was. I think that's a fair judgment. I think you're leading saying that you think it's more.
I think so.
Um,
I just approved 50,000 for the stream crossing of the Allen Brook.
But these are like, is it what I'm thinking of? They're like, they look like pallets right now, almost.
I would say they're more primitive bridges.
Yeah.
But I also think that
It's gonna be more than this.
it might be more than that. I mean, I believe I upped the dollar amount. By a few $1,000s at least. But
Okay, we have
Yeah.
money too, so it's fine.
it might be, that would be a question, actually, maybe John, you could chime in. Do you have
The
any?
costs are gonna be, the cost will be significantly higher than $15,000 for those 5 structures. In terms of the fees that we're paying, even starting with the permits, we're charged per square foot for any work in wetlands, and those are stream crossings. So it's going to be an expensive process, and we're going to do the work that is best for the land. So the structures that we need in those places are going to be, better than they might be in other places, and that is also a key connection that we expect to use in the winter. So the width on that one will continue to be relatively wide, and again that adds to the cost. I think that, when this was originally budgeted, there was less awareness of the sort of challenges of what this actually meant to pull off.
Okay.
It's significantly more, like 40.
I feel like it still shouldn't be as much as the Allen Brook. Like,
Well,
that
yeah,
was,
I
like,
know, that's a huge,
tons
I
and-
know, but this is 5 of them too. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, 5 structures. I mean, I don't have a great answer for you right now, but I would say with all the other costs that are involved, we're probably looking at more like 50 to 75,000. And I don't want this to be something that scares the town away. But the fact is we're going to be going after grants for this work, and we've often looked at this like it's a matching piece of it all, and so if we can make this work creatively, I think we're happy to do that. I'm kind of stepping out of bounds and not getting approval for the board for saying this, but this is a common way that these things happen, and looking at the numbers, they're for everything basically that we want to do, they're significant, and I don't think we should ever be thinking in terms of tens of thousands of dollars for anything that we're planning at the center going forward.
Is there a way to use this opportunity to make them work for adaptive riders also? I just was at Mad Pond earlier today, and like some of that to make those trails more adaptive has been completed, and they did a really nice job, and like some of the structures are like similar to, I think, at least what's at Catamount now, like maybe like an improvement over what's at Catamount now even, and I wonder like where that, do you know if that was VORAC money that fellowship used?
I don't know where it was what grant.
Yeah.
The adaptive standards are part of our the comprehensive trail plan that was approved by the select board. So that's included in there, and we'll be adhering to those where we said we would, which is a beginner, intermediate, and any place we can on expert trails. So
And does that include these, John?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
yeah, Three Rivers is an intermediate trail, so that would and it as a core connective trail and one that we really think it should be in much better shape. That's part and parcel of what we want to do here.
Do we have, with that huge difference between 15,000 and 50,000, do we want to? Or can we adjust our capital
It
improvement?
hasn't done it. I mean, you might want to bump it up to like 30 just for the start, I don't know.
We can update it. I think that from my perspective, the real number that matters this year is the request for fiscal year 26. And so going out beyond that, there is room we'll update this again next year. And from what John is saying, to me, there's a broader conversation here. Obviously, we have the town involved, we have the family center involved, and we're looking at a lot of projects that are expensive. And there's a question of how that's going to be financed. And I think that the agreement for the town to upgrade these trails or the bridges specifically. I don't know, were you talking about a comprehensive trail plan back then? I guess
No.
you were also part of the committee, right?
I mean, there was
The
always,
original one.
I mean, I wasn't in there. I mean, in
Okay.
terms of the Catamount board, we weren't talking a comprehensive trail plan because we weren't trying to get Act 250 permits at the
Right.
time. And it was wetlands who said, oh, you need not to come, John's explained this, come one at a time, like give us the whole big plan and then we'll approve you.
So I think
That's
there's
actually a
broad-
relatively new development within FPR, and is that they want larger plans like this. They've been piecemealing and kind of ran out of patience with it, and I shouldn't say patience. They ran out of time and resources to do things like that. So that Tina said that was something that they had really come to in the last couple of years. So it wasn't necessarily that there wasn't good planning there. It was also a development within the permitting structure.
What is the amount that's budgeted for fiscal year 2026?
Yeah.
I don't see.
28, it's not on this.
There's 10,000 and then 18,000. That's for the,
further down.
that's for the access, is that right?
Correct.
The 28,000 corresponds to the trail. But how's that link up to the 40,000?
Yeah.
So
Because
we can
Yeah.
back up a little bit. So we've got priority at the top,
Mhm.
and then we have our past funding here. And right here, we have current capital savings as of August 31st. And so then there's this manager approved box, which I don't really like, and I actually took the 28 out of it because Eric hasn't approved it yet.
I see.
And you can kind of see that there's I should have cleared it all out. Project cost and schedule correlates with the goals up at the top. And this is where you get your outlook by fiscal year with totals at the bottom.
So how does the 28 on the totals under 26 tie to the point number 1?
Because if you add the savings, it comes to 40.
It's like what we have plus what we need
I see.
equals the total expense.
I see, so 28 plus 12. Rounded.
Give us $941.
Yeah.
That would put us on pace, given the funding over the last 5 years. I'm skeptical that this will be a project. I'm not sure.
You mean a project that gets approved?
That gets fully funded. I'm trying to be realistic.
We got planning and engineering, would you break it up into pieces then?
So that's. Might be a conversation that the committee has then, depending on how much funding we have.
I see.
You know, maybe there's a certain amount of funding and then, there's. You know. Just having talked to John a little bit about this. And, the order of operations, like the 1 and 2. Maybe it ends up that the number 2, upgrading the 5 stream crossings becomes the number 1 next year. I'm not sure. I think that's an ongoing conversation, depending on how
Because we
much.
could actually afford that, where we couldn't afford the other one.
Not anymore.
I think you have to be strategic
Yeah.
and like that will be an ongoing conversation that this committee will have to have. Based on the climate of how much funding is available and what's priority. What I was trying to say before, and I just kind of want to put this out there, is that I think that there's a broader conversation about the projects that the Family Center is looking to go after. And the town being involved with funding that and trying to find a system, basically, to work together on that. So just putting that out there.
I guess related to that, one thing that's occurs to me is that if you are. And I'm not saying this is necessarily the case, but if you're on the board. But you don't live in town, you might not be necessarily privy to all the town. Budget conversations and finance conversations and might not realize.
We're
Like,
talking about the outdoor family center.
yeah, like if you are on the board of the Outdoor Family Center, but you don't live in Williston, it's possible that people aren't like fully realizing how tense. Budget conversations are in town and how like votes are going and that like the parking lot vote failed. And so like that just might be good, just like the tenor of town spending might be good to communicate, which could be part of that discussion.
I mean, I don't think the board has any illusions about that, and you know the questions that we're asking are really coming directly from me because we have grant opportunities that we're pursuing, and last year when we pursued this grant, we did include the Three Rivers project in our grant proposal with the town's approval, and had this money in there. So we have a deadline of December 6th to decide whether we are going to pursue Three Rivers this coming year, as we proposed in the comprehensive trail plan as part of our first phase. So what I said to Andrew is that we really just need to decide whether this is something that we should pursue on our own and maybe get reimbursed for, or whether we should eliminate this piece of it and just focus on a smaller project to get going with once permits are in place. Does that all make sense? I know it's a little bit complicated, but
Yeah, totally. But I think that the broader I don't know, you tell me if you think this is not true. I think the broader context of spending in Williston has changed dramatically. And like people's.
Yes.
we don't rely on any of this for project funding. It was noticed and this is it's been talked about from the town to us as like this is what we promised. So I'm not I don't think we're going into this blindly at all.
Okay, Hans and then me.
Sorry, I'm gonna shut up.
One, Alan and I are the president and vice president. We're both Williston residents, so we're well aware of that, of the climate of spending. I did vote for the parking lot. But the other thing is,
who the person was who voted for it.
from being in all the board meetings, like there's never a discussion about like money from the town. Like we operate completely independently, never thinking anything about like what's the town gonna do for us. If anything, the discussion is around like accommodating the things that the town is doing that we have to pay for to clean up, like the trail cleanup work after the forestry work and extra trees falling down and things damaged and, you know, so
But
I don't.
we're talking
don't
right
think
now
there's-
about town spending, and I feel like if we're having I'm not saying the board is asking the town for things, but if we're having a strategic discussion about what things should be prioritized, it seems like town spending trajectories and priorities should be included in that, because it's like a comprehensive look at what all is possible in the future, rather than like compartmentalizing things.
I think it is being discussed in context, and what John brought up was the trail plan that Outdoor Family Center is pursuing. Phase one would include, phase one or early phase includes the Three Rivers project where a lot of these bridges are. So John's point was like, well, if we're gonna go from Outdoor Family Center, fund the work to fix up this whole trail where these three bridges are, that the town has, if the town can't pay, then maybe we can take care of it, or if the town can't pay till the next year, then maybe we rejigger like what project.
But
was
wouldn't you
first.
want it, instead of saying if the town, to have a conversation and be like, what is that?
I think the conversation's happening between Andrew and John. I saw an email. I don't know if that's
Well,
true or not.
There was a promise.
I agree, we could have those conversations.
I feel like we're so, it's interesting, we're, have something, a deadline that's in December, but trying to talk about the capital budget, which is for March.
year.
We have a lot of things that we need to put on the agenda, but this might not be the,
Well, this has. to
or
be
is this the
approved.
exact
This-
right time to
this has-
figure out this?
This sheet
trail.
has to go into the budget, which I will see in a month.
So we have this December deadline
Right.
too, and
But-
that one.
Let me just say, my understanding, I mean, I have this perfectly, but because the capital improvement budget is a little bit different, but the way that I've seen it laid out in other places is we need to buy $1 million fire truck in 5 years. So rather than wait until year 4 and then go get a bond for it, we're gonna budget $200,000 each year and take it out of the operating budget and put it in the savings account so that when we get to that point, we can buy the fire truck.
Mhm.
So like, if we really had any interest in the sheep barn, we might want to say, it's gonna take us 10 years to get there. We want to put $10,000 in each year's capital budget. Comes out of the operating account, it goes into the savings account, and we spend it in the sheep barn in 10 years. So I don't really care about the sheep barn, I said that loud. But the other two I do
But it's
care
a
about.
good
That's the example,
Yes,
that's the example
right.
of how the capital
Right.
budget works versus the
Right,
operating
so,
budget.
so for instance, if I could have seen whenever the town did or didn't promise to do the stream crossing, say, well, okay, let's put $3,000 in the bank for 5 years, and then when year 6 comes, we have money to do it.
Which
Now,
is
we're a little late for that, though.
maybe what we had with the 8,000 going back, or the 7th. Going back to
Yeah, I don't know
fiscal year 20.
what we spent, it's not very
20.
much money, but it's, I mean, we. I don't know what we spent the other monies on, but, it's a little different than just putting money in an account to use when you, so that when you want to do a project, you
Yeah.
have it, that's different, so.
So I'm just gonna go back to Hans's point for a second. You mentioned that John and I are gonna meet. We do have a meeting to talk about phasing and just outlook between the town and the family center. And I think Kim was touching on this a little bit. And Hans, to your point, from a staff perspective, from what I've learned about this committee, I don't think that these are conversations that have really been had before about capital planning with the committee and the family center together.
Which should
And-
happen, I think.
Hold on,
Yeah.
let's let.
I
keep
agree.
going.
Yeah. I think that would be better, and I think the committee, you guys can discuss that.
We also haven't had this before. We haven't, this is the first time we're getting, although the bridges, I guess, have been on the plan since 2018, but we were waiting to get the logging project done. I'm looking to Hans for his institutional
think it
knowledge
was-
here.
We weren't allowed to dig or do anything for 5 years.
Oh,
I thought it
John
was
is
that we
nodding his
needed
head.
an archaeology, didn't we need an arc survey at one point?
Well,
Oh,
the archaeological survey will be done for all of this again, but it was really the no dig rule that was stopping us, and that we needed to update all the permits too. So this trail was part of the reason why we entered the discussion with our wetlands person and ended up at a master plan situation. So this trail is foundational to at least to the documents that I've read, I forget whether it was mentioned in the easement or not, but it's definitely mentioned in the management plan and in the lease, as a as a co-joint project with the town.
So with the agenda that we're on right now, which is the capital budget, we want to make sure we want to be emphasizing that it would be good to put more money into our capital budget for the next.
Well, I'm
5
a
years or
little
so.
confused, and we don't need to settle it here. Maybe this is for a future agenda item. Does the town have any obligation? I kind of feel like from things I've read, the town has some general obligation for these bridges. But beyond that, I think the trail, I don't think the town has committed to anything, so.
I'm just asking, is the new access trail, is that a commitment to or not?
That was, yeah.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So the only two things here. But there was no timing associated.
For
Right,
the access trail, but we're feeling more pressure in the last year or so.
Yeah,
I mean, if the access trail is important and we have, the chances of getting $28,000 when you didn't get anything in the FY25 budget, I think is slim to none at this point, but you could do the construction in July, right? So you could put the 18, you could slide those two out a year. And it would still be the same thing, right? You do the engineering in FY26, and then in July of 26, you do the construction. It would just straddle 2 years, so that would take that 10 down to something that might be more palatable. I don't have a problem with leaving it on here, but when you go to Eric and he pushes you hard, you can say, we
What
got
if-
18, but.
so I like your point about like putting money away. If we add up these, I mean, this obligation quantification might be wrong, 15,000. If it's 50, I don't know, round it up, it's 100 for both of those obligations that the town has.
Mhm,
Then for 10 years, we have to put 10,000 in a year.
mhm.
Like that's a bigger way to have the conversation, like the
Would-
town is obligated to
But
this.
you won't get anything for 10 years.
10 years is, yeah, give us 10,000 per year and we'll
right.
march toward it. Otherwise, like, we're not on the path to meet our obligation even in 10 years.
Mhm.
Right, and I think. From my perspective, everything is getting expensive over time.
Mhm.
Also, I would say that I think that part of that conversation is agreeing upon what the vision is out there. So what sort of bridges are we building? Are we building,
Hmm.
More primitive style bridges, or are they bridges that have, are we pouring concrete? That sort of thing.
No, I think that shouldn't really be part of the conversation, Andrew. I hate to disagree with that, but these are engineered for the place where they're put in and not overly done. I mean, we have to bring grooming equipment across them. So we're not we can't do primitive, and they have to be wide enough to accommodate adaptive uses, and they have to be angled in certain ways. There isn't a lot of wiggle room for us. It's not like we're like, well, we could do it this way or we could do it that way. It's like we have to do it this way. That's part of working with the wetlands folks too. They're we could ask for more, but we can't ask for less. Like there are certain minimum standards that they are going to demand from us, and we pay for all of that work.
I have a proposal. If I would, I would take the sheep barn off of this document. And I would bump the 15 up to 30, so you get $70,000 and spread the 70,000 over the years on this chart. So you would have 10 a year plus what we have in savings. And it would take care of those two projects, and it probably 12 plus 10 plus another 10 the next year. You probably still get the 40,000 in 2 years, if that makes sense. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah, I mean, I think like it's a bigger, it's not just like coming and saying like, how can we have this much money for next year? It's like coming with a bigger picture, like we have these obligations, these are the costs, spread it over these years.
Which I think gets
And these are
back
our
to
priorities.
this idea that we're having this conversation together. We have an understanding of, to John's point about what are we building out there? What level of construction are we talking about? And we know the dollar amount, and we can plan for it accordingly.
Well, I mean, I
And we
think
know
if
what the
you,
town's likely to say
Yes,
yes to.
yeah.
Like,
I think
I
that's
think,
another part.
I really think that like understanding the town's
ability,
spending and ability is critical. in this
I don't think it's
conversation.
changed much in the last. I mean, it's gotten less, but it's always been less. There's always been like take away stuff from the budget, but now it's just more stuff. What can we,
Yeah,
like,
it feels
I came from
paper.
Parks and Rec today and I mean, we're talking $1,000, like he's cutting, we're not anywhere near like in tens of thousands of dollars. We are, well, I mean,
Bring your own.
we're like trying to find where can we get rid of like that, where can we get down anything? And it's like just the thousands, 1,000, not, we're not in tens of thousands. It feels like 28. It'd be nice to ask for that, but
I mean, I think these two.
I think
It's not
that's
gonna be-
relevant. I think that.
I think it is relevant, but like the question is like, these two things need to be done in an engineering way that like whoever, that it. I don't know that there's the premium version of this or the like basic entry level version of this. There's just like the engineered right way to do these things for this purpose. And if that's the town's obligation, I'm struggling with like like that town's appetite to do it. Like, cause the only thing we can say is like, oh, well, we're not gonna do it indefinitely. Or we are gonna do it. Like, I don't, cause these things are commitments, right? It's not like these are committed. I guess unless we go back on that commitment as a town and say, too bad outdoor family center.
Or we say
Aren't
there
gonna
are
do
other priorities in town that are like housing or like. I don't know, like that are like people's immediate needs and we're going to do those first and push this off for 20 years. Like that could happen. That happens. in
right,
other
or the
states.
community
And that
center
was the
that's been there
scenario that I
since
was talking about.
2007.
Either
Yeah.
you need to erase the obligation or you just indefinitely push it. That's exactly what I just
but
said.
this would, what I had, I mean, are you just arguing that 30 isn't enough? Because I heard John say they would try to find other monies and.
I'm
things
just
like
trying to
that.
reconcile the discussion of the town's appetite to spend money.
Oh, I see.
And if there's no appetite to spend money, then.
We'd
we
love
either
to
need
spend money.
Erase these obligations. Well, we don't have money to spend.
Right.
We either erase these obligations or we just put them out indefinitely to like 30 years from now.
I guess my preference
I
would
feel like
be,
we are getting beyond
Yeah.
our agenda right now
Okay.
with how the town should spend the greater money. But it does feel like talking about these trails is kind of moving us into the CCFC charge, which, I mean, do we
Can we
want to
agree
go with
with them?
Jean's
yeah, I guess like,
suggestion?
the thing I was gonna say, which goes to this, is I would rather put forward a solution here that is likely to work rather than a pie in the sky that's not gonna work because there's an existing obligation. Does that make sense?
It does to me.
Want to leave
I
the
guess-
existing obligation at the original funding level and
That's true.
one of our discussion points that we'd like to bring up is that we're bringing tremendous value to this process, and part of that is that we're willing to go and fundraise on our own and not ask the town for a lot, and part of that that commitment from us is that we want commitment from the town for a much longer lease, and this involves our planning for the building, for all the other things, and if we just take this on, that means that we feel like we are really a valued member of the community too, because we're willing to do this on our own and not ask the town for a ton of money.
I like the 10-10-10, just spread it out over the year. You can make the argument with Eric that if we can get the 10,000 in 26 and the 10,000 in 27 with the money that we have in savings, we can get the southern parcel access road unless things change and we have to swap them. But you're telling the select board, look, this is 1 and 2. These are the things that the capital plan is about. And here's, you see it adds up to 70 or some number we agree. You can see it on the chart. Here's the 70 over so many years. Actually, we don't know which one will happen first, but here's our plan. I think it allows us to move forward and it's $10,000. I think that would work for me, and I'm the one they look at when they talk numbers. So
Sounds good.
I can't guarantee you'll get past Eric, but if it does. And then if it's, this is not set in concrete, we'll look at it again next year and go, what were we thinking,
Do we vote on that?
You could vote on striking Because I think part of it
Yeah,
is striking
striking
the
the
sheep barn off
sheep
of it.
barn.
I mean, you could, if we want to leave it on, we could like make a line and just say this is not being considered in the current capital plan or something, but
Or
Right.
you could push it out.
way out.
It's already out to fiscal year 2029, 2031.
Right.
Right around the corner.
It seems simpler
Right.
to remove it just for presentation of the document.
Right.
So, in terms of the grant that we're currently putting in an application for, it feels like we should not be including Three Rivers in it. Is that a good plan?
Well, do we want to flip flop them? Is that what would be better to say we want to do the?
I mean, this is for 2025, so I think I mean, unless we can move it into that category, I think we're outside the window for this project.
I mean, we look.
So you're asking us to prioritize the stream access and versus the stream, not the stream access, the southern side access versus the stream crossings. That's what we have on the table right now for our capital spending.
I don't know, I just heard John say 2025, which is,
So like next summer is, our view of 2025, I guess, but this
Okay,
is the
next summer.
26, it'll be the 26 budget.
right.
Oh,
And John's
so
trying to figure out if he should go forward with the Three Rivers project, which would include some of these bridges. So.
Versus the southern access.
Versus he would find a different project to do.
No.
Not on this list, that would, and we do Three Rivers later. If the town thought, oh, it's not, we don't wanna have any money to do the bridges this coming year, you better wait till the following year. So it's the sequencing, if you put the bridges first. Then that gives us more confidence, John more confidence to go after the trail that involves the bridges for next summer's work. Did I say that right, John?
Sort of. I mean, we wouldn't choose a different project. We would just scale back and not do Three Rivers out of this one. So, just to remind everybody, the goal for this early phase is to do the trail hub area, Elbow, Balsams, and then we were going to continue on to Three Rivers. But we have we have plenty to do in those other areas without involving Three Rivers in this first round. So. I don't.
Well,
yeah,
well, we have 13 in the bank. You could ask for 2,000, I can guarantee you can get that if you're talking the original funding. Because that's a reduction from year to year budget. But I don't know how to commit to more than.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can't know how to commit to anything beyond the 13, but if we could get, we could probably, make a case to get the 15. But if the number is now 70, I'm not sure if the 15 is. I don't know how much of a commitment you guys would need.
And you don't have like the plans for bridges, like you haven't like,
No, that's part of this budget.
but like recently, have you recently had like a design of them?
No, I mean, that would cost money to.
I had one from last year.
You do, okay.
Oh,
That
All of
we
them?
with the Vorak grant.
Conference?
And I'd have to go back and look and see what the numbers were then, but as Andrew said, the numbers have gone up, and I at that point I wasn't totally aware that we had to pay literally every square foot of work in permitting too. So that's another thing that was not added into that budget.
So maybe the answer is we just go with the 10, 10, 10, 10, 10
Yeah.
thing and we
Yeah.
just switch our options 1 and 2. So
Yeah.
that just gonna give the impression that would be,
and remove 3.
or put it below the line I would remove it, but it's, if it's important to anybody to footnote that it's there, then.
I don't think so. If we don't have,
We can only ask for so much money. To ask for another 10, 100,000 or
that's where
100,000.
we
It's
see
only a
John,
piece of it with
to your
grant
point, the
funding, is-
appetite for spending, if we show up for $100,000 in a sheep farm. I think it discredits us pretty quickly.
Right.
So Andrew, do you have this now? I think we're asking.
I was making a note right as you were saying this, if you just want
Okay.
to summarize it and then you can do a vote.
Want me to try?
Sure.
Okay, so we're gonna switch option 1 and 2 to
Mhm.
put the trail first, right? I think we should make it 30. Cause I came up with 70, we're gonna have a stream of $70,000.
So number 2 becomes 30,000.
Yeah,
yeah,
moves
And
up
it
to
becomes number
number
one.
one.
yeah.
And then down below, when you're asking for it by year, you're just gonna fill in tens right across the board.
Number 3 gets striped, the sheep barn
Mhm.
bullet gets striped. Sounds good.
And then you have to be passionate, Andrew.
Right.
Passionate.
Do
and
you
we
need,
need that
and I
10.
guess you need to. Let us know what we can do to help with
Mhm.
that.
Gene, do you know if the conversations are similar around capital budget as they are with some of the committees with going to the select board once that budget is proposed? Is there a,
I think they talk about it when, on that all-day Saturday budget meeting we have,
Okay.
they'll go through the operating funds and then they'll go through the capital.
okay, I'll also clarify that with Eric, if there's an opportunity for Representative Danielle, if you want to go to a meeting.
It's an all-day Saturday meeting, you can come the
You
whole
definitely wanna
day,
go.
All day
9 to
Saturday.
3.
They
Oh my God,
schedule
in
it, so I
December?
can tell you what.
Yeah, we tell you, you don't.
Okay.
Yes,
I mean, I'm
and
soon.
we really need at least the 15, which I don't think we're problem, but yeah, I think, good. 10, 10, 10, 10, I like that.
All right.
That was fun.
Great. Well, we
I
did
love
review and
numbers.
feedback of capital budget overview. Excellent. So now we're moving on to the Catamount Community Forest Committee charge and draft work plan and the memo for 12 minutes till we get to the brush hogging plan. But we also want to talk about,
Can't run out of
where
time, I gotta talk
charges-
about brush hogging.
I know, like, this is like, whoa, I need to talk about that too. So with the charge and memo, we're gonna just, my plan here is we're gonna discuss and maybe even decide what our plan is. But I also think, Andrew, you did a great job with
Yeah, I
this.
think so too, yeah. Help me understand it just by reading the
Yeah,
memo,
it
so.
like really puts in things that we've been talking about in the past and what we want to look for in the future on here with the bullets. Good suggestion, Hans. Yeah, so it does, it's nice to be able to look and say, what is our charge? I did just like highlight, and then it made me go to the forest plan to look at what the goals are, because it says
Oh,
implement the
good.
goals established by the management plan, so then I had to like rip that out.
Go chair.
Yeah, right, and so we have, and thank you for the forest plan writers back in 2018, so we have we have an outline of what our general purposes are and what the wildlife habitat natural resource goals are. Along with the recreation, educational, cultural goals and the forest management goals, so there are a whole lot of goals for us to put as a bullet on the back of this memo. And then we really know what we're doing. We're all set. If you've read it.
I have, how are you incorporating the goals? Oh, you said on the back
Like,
of the.
like if we could just have what they had from the plan
Yeah,
on the back of this page.
oh, so we just have.
So we can
reference.
see what the
Yeah.
goals are to reference.
Yeah.
It would, I think, help us focus what our job is here.
I mean, I like how it says,
Yeah.
I like how it says that, implementing with the assistance of the COFC, as opposed to we're overseeing the COFC, which has its own board. I would like how that was written in.
And it's interesting, this is with assistance from the county forester, so. I just heard on, I think on VPR that the county forester program is also changing, so it would be interesting to hear when he can come. What their role is now. And if he still sees that he is able to. Maintain the,
So it gets to an upcoming agenda item question, and I was thinking about trying to invite him for the next meeting in December. Danielle and I had talked a little bit about what we'd like to see there, when I really think that meet and greet to just have him familiarize himself with, what we're doing out here and what's been done would be good, but if you want to discuss it too, what else you think might be important at that upcoming meeting. Just wanted to put that out there.
I was gonna put out there that it would be really handy if we happened to skip December as a meeting.
I can't make the current date. For the band concert that maybe Hans can't make either.
Yeah. I think skipping in December might be a really good idea. We don't have anything burning on our agenda. It's just been.
Yeah,
I don't want to interrupt postponing the December meeting. I think that's a good idea for everybody. But we did have a meeting with with Brendan at the center and gave him a tour and an introduction. So we've already chatted with him a bit. I think the main changes with the program is that they will no longer be county foresters; they'll be district foresters based around what the FPR districts are, but largely doing many of the same things. And he seemed very interested in helping out. And I do think that having them at a meeting, at some point in the near future is a great idea.
I think it was funny that we have
Yeah.
absolutely no county government structures in the state except for Forester.
Mhm.
Versus other states that have a
They
huge
have
amount of
strong
right,
county government, yeah.
Okay,
So a February meeting, maybe?
with,
No
because we
January.
have Tony potentially in January
Oh,
Correct.
Tony's January. Oh,
and him in February.
Yeah,
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 so we were talking before the meeting, we had been talking about, that forestry project after our last meeting. Kim just said, I work with him, I see him very frequently, I'll plant that seed. And the idea is to invite him to one of our meetings and to also invite the Conservation Commission and members of the Family Center to come and meet and learn about the project, and have Tony present
oh,
on
that's great.
on
Yeah.
the project and also forestry in general. And Kim, maybe if you want to speak to that a little bit more.
Yeah, so I just had heard questions from multiple groups, and yeah, we're colleagues, we work in the same building, we walk past each other in the hallway many times. I think he's gonna be on Ethan's committee. So I said, would you be willing to do this? And he was like, yes, sure, of course. So then I sent a follow-up email, and I think it would be great if he did an overview of forestry in general, and then this project and its context, and like the broader network of, this is part of a huge network of projects that use the same methods all over the country, maybe beyond the United States, I'm not sure. Actually, I haven't looked at the website in a while. So that people could just really understand what's happening over there, why, what the contribution is to science and understanding forests under climate change, etc. And yeah, I think it would be great. And he's amazing. And he is like, I was saying to this group before you walked in, like, it's funny because he lives in Williston and he just seems like a dude, but he's like the preeminent scholar in this field. He's like, when you go to conferences, people are like afraid to talk to him. So it would be, it's cool that he's here and we have him.
And then
Yeah.
as far as that meeting time, we have to warn anytime we have a quorum coming together. The
Mhm.
Conservation Commission meets in the morning.
Yeah,
I thought we'd invite them to one of these meetings, as opposed to trying to find another time, just based on the fact that, Family Center, board members, and obviously all of you can make this time or have been able to in the past, so.
Is there, I'm just trying to like bound my own expectations for this.
yeah,
It feels like an educational session that
Yes.
he's delivering.
correct.
Which I still feel like, unless it's being addressed elsewhere, I thought maybe John had a note, he talked to him, I don't know. Like, we still have the operational, like, what is happening at the forest, and not to steal John's thunder, like there's some square of land over at the bottom of Three Rivers that was fenced in, so like deer can't get in there and the fence is falling down and like.
so we have a question
like
about
there-
what to do with Ethan Tapper's projects now that Ethan Tapper is no
Well,
longer
even what
involved
he's
with them.
doing, what Tony's doing ongoing with his projects
Mm.
operationally with kids driving pickup trucks down the gravel road and like, just like, I don't know, the operational. What is going on at the forest? That's not what this session is. This is like an educational. So I would wanna make sure, cause some of those
Couldn't it be
things.
this
could bubble
session
up.
is addressing what he's doing actually in Williston too? I would imagine it would.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking he would be like, this is my research agenda.
Yeah.
I was thinking he would be like, this is what's going on at Catamount and here's why it's important. And here, like, so you can
Yeah.
understand what is, like, why does it look the way it looks? Cause there's a reason for everything he's doing, right? But we just, sounds like you don't know what all of the reasons are.
I mean,
Oh,
I
I
went to
think it goes beyond the reasoning
I
too.
heard Tony talk before, but I'd love to hear him again. I think I'm just concerned that the board probably is gonna. From what they've heard about just like logistically, I feel like there's just still this elephant on the table of like. Who's managing the work that they're doing at the forest and communicating it to the outdoor family center and to us? Not from here's how it's improving. Here's how it's improving, just like tactically, like what is the procedure and process and what are they, when are they coming out? What do we expect them to do? Can we get these like plastic flags out of the ground sometime soon? Are they there indefinitely? Like that's very tactical. That's not like talking about the value, which I see, of planting diverse species. All must be color coded, I guess. I don't know. I appreciate that they replanted a whole ton of different species of trees in the area where they cut down.
Well, so this is an example of like, I think if Tony said to you, they're color coded so we can measure their success under climate change, then it would be clear, right? Like if he explained what was going on, then you'd be like, oh, I see, it's a research site. They're not going to take them out anytime soon because they're measuring success so we can know what forests will be successful here in the future and replicate it in other places, right? These questions are all intertwined. Does that make sense?
It does, but I might say, but still can we get these flags out?
I think he's gonna say no, because it's part of a long-term research site, right? Like, they're like,
So-
it's a,
So,
What?
Kim, speaking for the visitors, I think that people appreciate that this forest has multi-use, but this was a place that people really came to for a wilderness, or not a wilderness, but at least a forest experience. And the paint on the trees and the plastic in the ground changes that dramatically. And even if it is for the greater good, and this is an amazing project and all those things, that piece of like how people experience the forest, I think, is missed here. And I think that's where
I was
I'm
at Red
going with
Pond
it.
today, and there are so many blue pieces of plastic that are signs all over the trees. And I really don't think
we
everyone's
don't
not having
want that either.
experience.
We want to clean up all the signage, all the plastic in the woods. This is not something that we're trying to say is a one-sided thing. But believe me, the signage is a real challenge there, and we a big part of our whole trail plan is to reduce signage and improve it. So.
It maybe feels like it might be a little too soon to have Tony here before we establish like what we expect, what we would like from this presentation and how we will. Or
As long
handle
as we
ourselves.
bound it, I just wanted to make sure we bound it and
I
not
think it's
like.
useful to
can I-
ask the question.
Can I speak from a
Yeah.
staff perspective?
Yes.
I understand that this is a conflict. This is something that Hans and I have discussed. It's something John and I have discussed about the flags. My approach has been that this is something that the UVM study is doing, and that right now they're staying in the ground. Obviously, this is a conflict that's still going on and needs to be discussed. My goal with having Tony come to this committee was to have everybody in the same room together to discuss the project, understand what the project is, and then also touch upon the operational stuff. I want that to be a productive discussion as a staff member. I don't want people to argue about it.
Yeah,
Ultimately, if it just comes to whether or not the flags are gonna come out or not,
I think the answer is just
I
no.
think it's no.
It's,
well, can I ask another question then? Because there was no advanced warning to anybody that there were going to be flags. So one could reasonably expect that these flags multiply and the entire forest is covered with them without any notice to us. So like, it just feels very unbounded. So like, that's the piece of, like, communication goes a long way. If the public was told like, hey, this is gonna happen, you're gonna see these flags, here's why we're doing it. Then it might have been a little different, but at this point, it's like, they just, like, who's control, like, is our committee supposed to understand what they're doing before they do it?
So,
Or will we just find out that like all of a sudden there's another experiment on another part of the property with other stuff all over the place?
this gets into our discussion from last meeting, which is that the hope is to have some collaboration. And to be working together on, okay, UVM wants to go out and do this project, let's come to the committee to the town to discuss what that project will look like, what the goals are, et cetera. Tony's project is a longstanding project that's
It
been out there. It
predates, yeah.
predates me. It predates Melinda, actually.
Mhm.
Does it predate the forest?
Yeah,
Being
yeah,
acquired by the town?
yeah,
I'm pretty sure it does.
So
yeah.
he had obligations under, with Jim McCullough. that
It was
he
at
going to
the,
do
it was
this
at the
work.
same time, that we were writing the management plan, he came to us and asked, like, is a current vision for this space to be used for research? And the group that wrote this had a deliberative dialogue about it and agreed that that was an appropriate use. And the other thing I want to say is I think there's a lot of people for whom blue marks on trees and like the pin flags in the ground, that's what the northern forest looks like to them. Like my coat has blue spray on it. And I wear that coat like when I'm in different parts of Vermont because it like signals to people like I work in the woods. And I think it's like really missing a huge slice of the community for whom like the mark of forestry is the thing that makes them feel connected to the land. And it's not ostracizing everybody. For some people, like that's connection, that's home. Like 80% of the male population in the state used to work in the woods not that long ago. That's like, this is like a trade and the mark of that trade, and people see it and feel connected to that place. And that's been a working forest for a long time. Like it just has. And so like I don't want to hear the like deriding of that group of people that also deserves to like feel a sense of place and a sense of connectedness, right? Like I don't
Okay, I
know.
appreciate your defense of the things that are in the forest, and I accept that. And I don't challenge that at all. My interest is just before there's additional studies that happen from the UVM group, are we to expect that we would know about them as a CCF committee? Or will they just spring up and we should expect to not have been told ahead of time what is coming?
That
Sounds
just
like a
didn't
good
happen.
question that we should also add to our, maybe to our agenda, or like how do we find out about projects?
But like Tony's not going around just like poaching land. I really think it would be good if he would come in.
I would just recommend maybe that
My point
the
is to
can I
CCF.
say something? I've been quiet.
Yeah.
I think, I don't want to sandbag him with a list of things that we're angry about operationally. So I would just recommend that we put together a list of operational questions and let him be prepared ahead of time that we want to talk about. There's some things that we've been bothering, but we're not gonna just like throw them at him while he's up in front of a crowd. So it'll be like, here's a list, we'll send it ahead. We want to talk about the trucks. We want to talk about being warned about any change in what you're working on now. We want to be, whatever else the operational things are, and just let them know ahead of time, and then we can have a intelligent, calm conversation about them. At the meeting.
I agree with that from a tactical point of view. I still, even without asking Tony, I don't understand our charge as a committee. If Tony decides to do a few more,
No, he's not. I think
Things.
we've all just said that he should be coming to us before he does anything else. That's
Oh,
outside
okay.
of, he's got a footprint though, right, where.
Yeah, I mean, like he came the first time. I don't think he would ever do anything differently.
Yeah, but
okay,
But
the
that's
CCF
make that
committee
clear.
the CCF committee knew about that.
We didn't exist when he first, like this, he
I see.
came about this project at the time that we were acquiring Catamount. There was no committee.
I see.
And my goal from a staff perspective is to have better coordination through and through.
Right.
That we have
Right.
coordination between the town, between the staff, because I've said it before in this meeting, in these meetings. That there has been coordination with staff, which I know is a concern of the family centers as well, and I think that that's justified.
Yeah, that should be just a big thing we'll discuss, and I'm sure he'll say that makes total sense to him. So,
Yeah.
um,
Do we but going forward, we think January works, or?
I do, if I think if the family center can outline their operational list and
Get it
through
over to
Andrew,
him.
get it over to him beforehand, and, I mean, like, you guys probably do it at your next meeting, you could probably put together a list of things you'd like to address with him and give him a heads up. And that could happen in December, I'm sure. You're not gonna send it to him the day before the meeting, so.
Sure.
Right. We'll learn a lot with that meeting with Tony.
We will.
How about brush hogging, the brush hogging plan, speaking of.
What are we
working
doing
the
with this? Are we
forest
doing anything
there.
else with this? We're just going to,
This feels like something good to hold on to.
yeah, yeah.
Right, I don't think,
We could live with this for a little bit.
yeah, and I feel like when we discuss things here, I'm like circling back to this a lot, thinking
Mhm.
about.
Yeah, and I like the idea when you, like, I know you said we can link to it, but if, if I had this in front of my binder, which I forgot tonight, and it had the list of goals, yeah, we could occasionally, once a year. Have a little retreat out in the forest and say, how we doing against the goals?
mm,
And if we're missing something, then it can go on.
Yeah.
The work plan, so.
I think, and you just said it, work plan, the other part that I wanted to introduce a little bit more. I wanted to introduce the idea of creating a work plan of possible projects, possible things that people are interested in doing in the
As a
coming year.
committee. As a committee.
To
or-
start
yeah.
thinking about that
Mhm,
process
mhm.
of planning that way.
Yeah.
So we don't have to have the conversation right now, but maybe be thinking about something related to this that you want to do. An example, Danielle and I talked about spending some of the operational budget this year on some invasive treatment in the spring, as there's still $3,000 in that account.
right, recently approved. Yes,
Okay, so is it a committee work plan? Like we're gonna have,
but maybe also supporting the
Forester come in,
volunteers
is it?
that are out
yeah,
there,
because then we talked about having them come,
right?
talk
Like,
to us,
like having
so-
the bobbling project, while talking to us too.
right?
And that actually, another item to add to the work link, or the work plan, is the it's escaping me, the agreement with Harold DeGraff on.
Mowing lease agreement,
mowing.
and
Has anyone talked to Patrice Maloney recently about her field and collaborating with mowing schedules?
I have not,
Okay,
I don't know anyone who has.
but like a while ago, I thought that like. If we applied for the Bobolink project with her, like in collaboration, which I realize is difficult because of relationships, but she had been open to it at the time. That we might get enough money to make the contract like more financially viable for the farmer, whoever was paying at the time.
Okay.
And then I don't remember entirely what happened, like either we weren't competitive, it wasn't like a big enough application. Or she decided she didn't want to do it, but it does have financial benefit and. It like together, the fields are substantial.
so we do have the hogging plan map that we could look at.
Yeah, that's. So
Was the
I don't know what you
farmer-
mean by the,
Do we have concerns the farmer didn't want to sign up for doing it again? Or this just makes it a sweeter deal for him with that?
I just think it's like financially like increasingly financially tenuous for people.
To have him come on, yeah.
but it is approved, I think we have some money already approved and set aside to spend this year for the brush hogging. For this year, 2024, which would be what's in red. So this map, I think, outlines the rotation of like a 3-year cycle of brush hogging. And
Isn't that mostly just field? Is there anything to actually brush hog in that area?
there's like, aren't there trees that are popping up that need? My understanding of brush hogging is that it is. I have very little understanding of brush hogging, but it's better than lawn mowing, right? At taking
Yeah.
care of the bigger
Yeah.
brush
like,
that will then turn
I
into tree land.
assume it's sumac, just like looking at this.
Or the poplars, aren't there some out there? I don't know,
There's a patch of sumac up there.
Mhm.
but. I guess
I hate sumac.
It's
the,
very aggressive.
we still have time to do it this year, for the 2024 mowing and that rotation that we had. Previously on the committee, I think agreed to doing every 3 years. So I'm bringing this forward now to see if we want to spend that 600. And keep going with the plan. I don't know if there's trees or not out there, I don't know if that's. the brush hog removal
Yeah, I
goes.
don't know how to decide, I'm not an expert on brush hog, how to decide, we would want somebody to look at it and say, yeah, that definitely needs brush hogging. I think before we decide to spend it, whichever section. Otherwise, I'd be inclined to spend money on invasives, are we allowed to do that?
Well, it gets, it just, oh, yeah, right.
So in the past, I think the discussion was that this was hopefully helping with invasives. And I'm unclear on whether or not those are woody invasives that the goal was, or if it was poison parsnip.
No, it
think-
wasn't the poison parsnip.
Well-
It was ideally addressing the other.
I think this, I'm
Invasives.
sorry, I'm like going back and forth. I feel like these areas. Was some of this done with the Brontosaurus already? That's like slated to be,
That was on the power line, right?
and like across from the pond?
The
I'm not
bronze,
familiar
not
with the
on this,
source.
you're on the south side, right? Looking at the red. Kind of going up Goose Hill area.
Yeah, I thought that like some of that. Or maybe it's just the orange stuff that was Brontosaurus.
And that was the wet area that they got stuck in last year.
Well, I guess I'm not sure. I'm just. Yeah, never mind.
It seems to me that this is this, if we decided before, which I guess I'm assuming we did. That we wanted to brush hog this to maintain the view shed and keep the access open. That we would want to continue with
Which
the
part
plan
of
we've
it
already
is, I'm
decided.
confused on the colors.
The red
The
one.
red is what has not been brush hogged in 3 years and.
Correct. And should be.
That definitely has
Yeah,
sumac in it. It has like.
So if we don't, then it will be the trees will take over more of the meadowland, and then we are losing some of the bird habitat that's part of the goals and some of the view shed that, isn't that that's a pretty view towards Mount Mansfield? Why am I arguing this?
Or,
No, you're looking up towards Mount
Camel's
Mansfield.
Thank you, yeah.
Right, both ways, you can see it all from there,
So we have the money and we have someone who'll do it and we're deciding if we want to say yes.
yeah.
I vote yes.
Yeah.
Does,
All right, and
does the family center have any opinion? If
Um,
we,
The piece on the north side, just outside the trailhead area. If that is to be mowed, now is the best time because it is dry. And they likely won't be stuck. The only thing that I would caution is that we're in the process of redelineating those wetlands right there, and that I believe that some of that area that is within those bounds are technically wetlands. So if there's if you want to pull the buffers back and shrink those areas a little bit, I think we can still be safe. But there, I think on the edges we're in some wetland areas there.
so when were those parts last brush hogged?
last year.
Those have been. No, they didn't get done. They just got they did a very tiny bit and then got stuck. So it's really left over from last year and hasn't been done yet.
Was this, I feel like this was Brontosaurus.
What is a brontosaurus?
It's this like,
Tree eater.
yeah.
Forestry mulcher, it chews things up. I don't know for certain whether that it hasn't been while I've been there in the last 2 years.
So I guess our question is if we would,
I think it was like.
if we do go with brush hogging, do we fix it up from last year, the part that didn't get done because, and we could probably do it this year because it's probably dry, but it could be wetland, so we possibly shouldn't do it. Or
it's the edges that are towards the wetlands where I would pull back, and be safe. And there are pink flags out there delineating the wetlands, so we could walk out there and say like, don't go beyond these, and we're okay. So I mean, this is actually probably the best time to do this because they are actively flagged right now, and there's a line.
and then if they can't, then you could just switch over and do the south side that's marked out in red. That would be
And that's fine. That anytime that's that's not impactful to use, and right now is the best. So,
Good point.
And they just need to how do you two work it out, or how is it worked out?
if they reach out to us, then we can go walk with them. But last year they just showed up and started mowing and got stuck. So um, we're happy to talk and walk and help out.
I think that's considered completing work, or.
They should be letting you know with
Yes.
like 24 hours notice, or
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, if they really want us to walk, 24 hours notice is not enough. We just want to set up a meeting and be sure that we're all there, and again, we're happy to help, but just need a little bit of time.
If you approve it, I'll work with the family center on finding a time to go out there that's dry. And I'd also work with,
and you said
it'd
you
probably
work with.
be Eric Lackey that would be contracted to do it. Just need
Is this
clarification on the location of which one you want to do.
It sounds like,
Yeah,
I
that.
mean, I think the yellow would be good to finish. If they tried to get to it and they didn't because it was wet, and if it's frozen now and they can get to it, there's a lot of scrappy stuff there. The red section, I mean, my experience, the red section is, I don't think there's a lot of,
but if we have it in the budget, we haven't spent it.
Yeah.
You
I
should go
think, I
spend
think
it.
the red section is where there is sumac, right? Cause that's like where there's like a sumac grove that I don't think we would want to touch. There's several sumac groves that I think like they're mature, you probably wouldn't.
Can't.
Right,
But we might not have enough.
but then
from
there's like
both of
other
these.
like stuff coming up and that
At the
sumac would
I agree at the
expand.
top of the hill, there's a lot of, like, there's a sumac patch and the highest part of the hill going across there's a lot of crap growing in up there.
And
Just
like
the-
that sumac will just.
But wait, John knows this, and John has agreed to talk with,
Yeah.
so we don't need to argue this, we
so
can let
yellow
John
and
take
the
care of that,
red And go to it.
and you're gonna,
I think if you could give me priority, and John, you should discuss on
we
which one
should
you
discuss priority.
prefer to.
I think the priority is the gold stuff there, and
Yeah, 'cause
unless
it's
it's
late, right?
impossible to do, in which case I would authorize staff to authorize the brush hogger to move to the other lot.
Great.
But I think sounds like, without having ever been in that gold space, I think that sounds like it's already late and it should happen.
So, yeah, if you wanna vote on, we'll say $600.
Which is what we have.
I move we spend $600 on brush hogging, and authorize Andrew to work with John on the exact location of the brush hogging within the gold or the red space.
Second.
Okay, motion to, let's vote. All the ayes, please, aye.
Aye.
Noes? There's no no's,
Thank you.
all right.
Do you know if the blue stuff that Steve Page did, is that all poison parsnip? Was that all that? Is it all poison parsnip?
I don't know if
That's what
I think there's a
parsnip
lot
is.
there, yeah.
I don't know that there was a lot of other woody stuff, no, like, not a lot of other stuff.
So that's like the next thing that we're gonna have to worry about.
We'll add that to the agenda next time. Right now, we're on to 6:50 and John's updates from the Outdoor Family Center.
It's just-
So we in the last month we got through the process with the select board for approval for our comprehensive trail plan, and have started working with the Act 250 folks, our wetlands folks, which we've been working with for a while. We've also reached out to our fish and wildlife, forestry, and archaeological review teams to get them aware of what we're asking for, and to get them involved early in the process. According to our Act 250 coordinator, it's best that we apply. So the Act 250 permits can be granted, but not all the pieces are fully reviewed. So our phase 3, the upper trails, would be approved, but not fully approved. Does that make sense?
No.
So, and part of this is so, like, Act 250 permits only live for 5 years, and then you have to get them updated. And so, because of the phasing, we're expecting that we will get through phase 1 and 2, and those are the ones that we will do fully. And then this other piece, the larger piece on the higher point, we will go through a deeper process at the end, but they will review it, sort of globally, and then we'll go down and get into the nitty gritty in 5 years for that piece.
Now it makes sense.
What, this connects back to maybe our charge, but like, what's the town's role in the Act 250 permit, if anything? Nothing?
To sign off on what basically what we propose, and this is an ongoing conversation and an ongoing
The landowners.
refinement with the town and with Act 250 and the land trust. There's all this, and Velco. I mean, everybody has a say throughout this process, so it's going to continue to be collaborative.
Town's the owner, family center is technically what we would call the applicant in this office. Similar to what you refer to, like a consultant that comes in and does a permit for
Okay,
another
yep,
organization.
yep. Got it.
That's the relationship as far as Act 250 sees it.
So then like, okay,
But John's right too, that it is more complicated than that with the easements and such.
Yeah.
And Velco and yeah. But the select board granted Eric the ability to sign off on the permit applications as a representative of the town.
got it.
So that process is moving along as fast as we can, but there are limits and there are costs involved with all those pieces. All the groups that I listed, Fish and Wildlife, wetlands, forestry, archaeology, they all require paid reviews that we will have to invest in as part of this process. I anticipate them being quite costly, but not we have to do this, so that's just part of the process for us. We also met with our chosen partners for the building planning, and that's TCE and Black River Design, and we had a large meeting with them and with our board and some of the staff, and went through what we have now, what we're hoping for, where the site limits are, and then through that process of discussing all those things, we're also planning our public outreach questions, and our online surveys and our 3 meetings that we're scheduling with the public are going to be informed by that process. And we hope to have the digital public surveys out within the next month or so, and then we have January, February, and March scheduled tentatively for the actual public meetings where people can come and talk if they want, or again attend online. We finished up our fall event season and had some real successful late events, particularly Rutfest this year really grew, and that's a 36-hour running race. I don't want to call out Hans too much, but I believe he ran 66 miles over the course of. Yes, is that true? No, 50K. What'd you do? How many miles did you run?
I mean, as long as walking counts as running, that was walking. 66 miles.
Wow, yeah, that's a lot.
Other people, but like this woman got the record, 126 miles.
Ooh.
And she's been, I don't know, she's been doing it for a few years, but
Wow.
somehow I looked at the history of her as like ultra runner, and it's been like in the last 5 years, she just was like awesome. It's amazing.
I haven't run 126 miles in my entire life.
Right there with you. We also had our annual Spoketacular event with the Fellowship of the Wheel. It's a much calmer and reserved event compared to the old haunted forest. We have set up our staff for the winter and are excited. We've been turning over our rental fleet too, and selling it at a pretty reduced price mainly to local folks, and really trying to support the community with expensive gear that isn't so expensive. Let's see, what else do we have going on here? We're getting ready for winter, obviously, hoping that it will snow, but planning to be riding bikes and hiking and doing everything else until it does snow. And that's a big that's pretty much our update for right now. Does anybody have any questions or concerns at all?
Nope.
At one point in time, we shared an Excel spreadsheet with our events, but I guess we don't have any events. That's why we're not doing that on our agenda now. Okay.
Oh,
I think
Yeah,
that still lives, and we check it and we populate it with our stuff too. So whenever anything does pop up, I think that still works.
So you're putting your events on there on that Excel spreadsheet as well.
Is that true, Andrew? I may be speaking out of turn.
Not that I know of. I thought that was just town events.
Okay.
That we're putting on the spreadsheet there. But we haven't had any town events in the last 6 months.
Amanda still checks it out. So we're still trying to keep track of it.
So if one comes up, I'll put it back on the agenda. I took it off tonight, just time wise.
And then if people were to check, we go to the Outdoor Family Center's events to find out what's happening there.
Well, it sounds like they're still putting things on the spreadsheet. So
No,
No, it's
I
not.
was wrong. I was wrong. I spoke out of turn.
But their calendar is on their website. It's
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sharon.
Thanks.
Thank you all.
See you in January.
Do we need to vote to skip December or no?
You can if you'd like. I think that would be good. Sure. Let's be formal.
I make a motion that we do not meet in December and we meet again in January.
Second.
All right, let's vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All in favor.
I'll
Except you.
abstain.
Yeah.
You can't abstain.
I didn't have it.
You don't have to go to a concert?
Oh, I did have one last question. Have you had applicants for
Oh, yeah.
the
I
chair?
have actually. Wait for the.
Not the chair,
For
for
the-
somebody
yes.
else to come sit in that
You
chair
look
with us. I'm resigning after this one. That's great.
Give them a shout out.
Oh, well, I encourage someone, so I'm just curious if it's.
Who did you have? Well, hold on.
They have to go meet the select board first, right?
Yeah. Oh, wait, are you allowed to tell us? You don't have to.
If it's gonna be on the agenda for the select board.
Oh, yeah. I guess that's true.
I know, it's the same day as this
No,
one.
well,
December
Let's see if I can
14th.
find it.
I know.
I'm carrying a faculty search
Yeah.
right now and like,
Oh.
I'm like really
Yeah,
afraid I'm
13th
gonna
is
accidentally.
Okay, I don't.
Yeah, say something you shouldn't say.
Well, it's just like such a
Whatever
small
next one's supposed to
community. And I'm afraid I'm gonna be like, oh, I just saw so and so, and someone's gonna be like, where? And I'm gonna be like, somewhere, can't remember. And it will be like a person from Montana or something that will like, do you know what I mean? Where
Yeah.
like I'd be like, there's
Yeah.
only be one reason that I saw that.
Yeah.
So there's no problem.
Drew Crandall.
No, okay.
I see.
Do we get to see their like letters or no?
Like their application.
Yeah, like what, like I'm so curious.
I think it just goes to the select board.
So you'll know, like
If
Yeah,
they write a letter, I guess. Yeah.
their, what their passions are and their
They
perspectives.
the
that they
interview.
bring.
Right, so you.
They interview, but when this chair's been open for 6 months and the person seems like an okay person, it's not like we say, well, we prefer to have
And we're only
somebody.
down one, is that right? We're only down.
No, we're down 2, aren't we?
Just one.
Oh,
You
You're,
feel.
you're counting yourself when you leave
oh,
in the springtime.
no, I was thinking Terry and Reed, but I'm,
Wait, you're only staying till
Carrie.
spring?
no. I got a Fulbright
Oh, that's
and we're
right.
temporarily going to British Columbia,
That's
so I'm
right.
gonna join remotely
Oh, yeah, good.
for the spring.
From British
So you'll
Columbia for
still be
forests.
with
I think
us,
that's right.
just virtually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yes, big trees up there.
yeah. Huge trees.
You should
Can
go
you
on
tell me
tour.
if they've
At